Go live. Let's do it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back for our 8 p.m. Tropics talk. Soon to be something totally different because tropical season is indeed winding down. But until then, we're going to continue to talk tropics and kind of congregate to see exactly what's going on out there across the Atlantic and the Caribbean because things are not quite done yet. But it's kind of looking like they will be very soon. So we're going to kind of dig in and see exactly what's going on. Ethan, good evening. Good to see you. Linda, hi there. It's going. I'm definitely going to be biting the bullet here very soon. And I do believe, unfortunately, the channel is going to take a little temporary hit. We're probably going to slow way down in terms of our growth, unfortunately, just because it seems like with the tropics starting to close out, folks are just not tuning in as much. There's not a whole lot of eventful weather to talk about just yet until we get something big in the winter department. So we'll see. I do want to clarify one thing, though, for folks tuning in, because I got a few different comments on one of my earlier videos today. I will still continue to report on the Caribbean, on the Atlantic, on Bermuda, Central America, and so on. I'm still going to continue to talk about you guys down there. Just because hurricane season is going to be wrapped up and done with does not mean I'm just going to forget about you guys. So if you're tuning in and watching this evening, just know that I'm still going to continue to talk about all of you guys down there in the Caribbean AOR, and not just the United States. You know, we're going to continue to cover everybody. It's just as hurricane season winds down, there will probably be a bit more to talk about over the lower 48 in Canada as opposed to down there in the tropical AOR. That's the only thing. But we're not going to forget about you guys. We're going to be year-round talking about everybody. So, you know, so that's that. And I agree with you, Ailant Will 07. I definitely agree. It definitely seems like it's over with. Although, you know, there is one little small glimmer that I want to talk to you guys about tonight that I noticed. I feel like I don't really, you know, expect much from it, but I've had a little bit of a, I spoke too soon moment earlier when I was taking a look at our 12Z data and whatnot. Carmen, good evening. Malachi, good evening. Sharon, welcome in. Maybe the Atlantic hurricane season is closing out early. It might. There's some people still talking that we might get 2 or maybe 3 named storms this month. I'm not too sure what they're looking at, but I don't really have anything immediately on my radar. And usually I will go ahead and say it first. Let's be real here. If I'm being fully transparent and blunt with you guys, if I see something 7, 10, 12 days out, I'm not afraid to blast it out once I see some consistency with it. And, you know, even with Invest 97L, you look at it on satellite imagery. I mean, look at that thing. There's, you know, coulda, shoulda, woulda. There's really nothing going on with it. A lot of its thunderstorm activity was once again ripped away from it and pulled off to the northwest in association with that low pressure that was kind of mingling around Jamaica for a while, where National Hurricane Center originally thought that was going to develop. So this thing's basically a dead stick. I don't really foresee anything's going to come out of it. And honestly, with the way it's looking on satellite imagery, I may even backpedal on what I've been talking about in terms of Central America, seeing a whole lot of flooding with it, because it doesn't even look like it wants to make it to Central America at this point. Even Pilar looks like she's struggling out there, blossoming with a little bit of convection, nothing crazy. It's a very small storm. Look at that thing on satellite. All of our tropical systems out there are like really, really dying out. Really dying out. Pilar doesn't look too good in the East Pac. You can't even really discern a tropical disturbance from this. In fact, a lot of the thunderstorm action is not even associated with anything tropical. It's over Central America, so they're already getting rain. They're not even seeing the tropical disturbance. They're already getting rain down there. And you can see there's far more aggressive thunderstorm activity hitting the likes of Colombia, Venezuela down there. So it goes without saying, guys, we're definitely right there on the edge. We're right there teetering off the cliffside of closing the book that is called 2023 hurricane season, or strike that, reverse it, hurricane season 2023. Very wonderful weather for those of us who reside in Florida, though. I don't know if I have a lot of viewers from the central or just general the Florida area. I know Sharon, you are. Janice, welcome in. Good evening, dear. Good to see you. I know she's Central Florida. Let's see who else is in here. Ethan, I'm pretty sure you're Florida. We have a number of Florida folks in here. Zenful, definitely Florida. And you can see it on the satellite. You have all these cloud streets moving through the Gulf, moving across Florida. Very, very wonderful weather this evening. Just came in from a walk not too long ago. That's why the hair probably still looks a little whiffy. Nomad Cat 4, I agree. Like I said, I mean, there's... If we want to, I guess, I know it's not Friday yet, but if we want to hype a little something, there is a very, very small little area after all this is said and done down in the Southern Caribbean that we'll have to watch, but I'm not putting any energy in it whatsoever. If I see it start to trend, then maybe I'll start to mention it, but I'm not going to be, making full-fledged videos like, hey, whoa, area of interest to watch. It's just not a whole lot with it. Let's see what 97L's doing, because I know, there's our 18Z intensity guidance, and all of our models are really starting to lose faith in it. You can see a large majority now don't even want to develop it. There's still 1, 2, 3, I'll say 3 model members that really want to turn it into a tropical storm. I'm not even going to count this NNTB, because, you look, it squeaks barely over that tropical storm threshold, so there's not a lot of confidence there. And you can kind of already tell that tropical season and this channel are going to start dwindling just a little bit, because look at our view count, only 50 people in right now. And that's the bummer, that's the one thing that we're going to have to struggle with here in the Weather Center, unfortunately, because we've been so fixated on the tropics for a while. I know a large area of our population is just folks who are tuning in to talk tropical weather. So now it's almost like starting from scratch again, going over the United States, talking winter weather and whatnot, because, I haven't really catered to that. So I'm already biting the bullet, looking at YouTube, mentioning how my view counts are down, and there's no one really tuning in, so it is what it is. We're still going to keep providing the weather coverage, even if I do go down, dare I say, to the every other day video like I did when I first started. When I first got started, the first couple weeks with Adalia even, it was a every other day kind of video. It'd be like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then maybe Saturday or Sunday video type of thing. And, maybe I'll do that. Maybe it might slow down our growth on the channel before next hurricane season, but maybe I'll do that. Really backpedal on the workload a little bit, so this way it's not like I'm pumping out the same thing every single day unless there's really something prevalent out there to talk about. I've heard people say you've had a couple of things spin up in December, not much, but you've had the odd one or two. Yeah, there are a couple of videos circulating out there right now that supposedly some people are thinking hurricane season could go into December. I don't know about that. I feel like at this point we're reaching, but tonight what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit tropics, and then we'll kind of go forward in time, and I really do want us to start talking about next year. Well, we still have our tropics talk, because technically, while this is still considered tropics talk, everything is on the table in terms of tropics. So we can go ahead and start brainstorming what next year look like, because to tell you the truth, I'm a little leery. I'm a little more nervous for next year with everything that I'm starting to see pop up, not only in our MEI oscillation forecasts, but also climatology. So we'll talk about that here in a second. We'll see if anybody else joins us. We'll say hello to everybody. Thomas, I see you already. Sharon, you're already there. Dory, we are the best 50 people. I agree. You guys are definitely my favorite conversation group to just talk to. Zenful, I know you will, dear. That's definitely anticipated. Hurl Hamilton, how many inches rain Billy's expected to see from... Hurl, I was mentioning that earlier. You look at it on satellite right now, and I'm not even sure you guys are going to get a whole lot out of it, because, look at it. You guys are honestly seeing more rain down over Nicaragua and Costa Rica right now, and the disturbance isn't even there. You already have some thunderstorm activity flaring up over Belize right now and just off the island, or just off the area on the islands too. This is our invest area, and there's really nothing with it. Nothing whatsoever. It's very disappointing. Very disappointing. It goes to show, once again, that you can't put all your eggs into one basket and kind of go off of just strictly what the models are showing. But for the sake of tropics, let's go ahead and talk, because I know a few of you have probably seen it, and here we go. You ready? Let's hype up. There goes the GFS doing GFS stuff, and we got another hurricane forecast for the Eastern Caribbean. Malachi, I saw you ask earlier if there's anything out there for Barbados. Well, according to the GFS, in the middle of the month, we got another hurricane coming. And for those of you also tuning in after the live stream, please understand that I'm just joking around. There have been hints. There are some long-range hints. Dark Earth, welcome in. Miss Leah, good evening. I'm from Chicagoland. You can talk winter storm so I can get a laugh out of it and make fun of my friends. Will, okay, I'm going to take you up on that. Models can definitely fail. I absolutely agree. But just for shoots and giggles, take a look at how we have another hurricane forming to the south of Puerto Rico on the GFS. There is one tiny little, I'll go ahead and do that for emphasis, there's one little tiny speck of agreement that I can kind of argue in terms of seeing another cyclone out there. I'll say a low pressure, not a tropical system. But first and foremost, let's go to weathermodels.com. We'll start talking about that stuff here in a moment. And also, you guys can definitely tell that the hurricane season's getting ready to close out, because look at how everything out here is flowing backwards. That African monsoon has pretty much all come and gone. Everything is flowing off to the east now, whereas during the African monsoon, the heart of hurricane season, everything obviously, as we've seen, guys, is flowing to the west. When you see this very disorganized plume of moisture down there, you don't have the intertropical convergence zone that we typically see out there, that's when you know that the tropics are pretty much closed, or at least I should say the MDR is closed down for shop. But let's go to weather models, because I definitely had a moment where I was like, oh, maybe I spoke too soon. We'll start off on the Euro ensembles real quick, just to kind of get something to fixate on for a little while. And I will admit, I thought this was kind of interesting, but again, we just had a total flop. We had all of our models highlighting something with Invest 97, and that was a huge bust. And I know that some of the models still think it could develop before it gets to Central America, but I don't, until I see something on satellite, I don't think anything's going to come of it. I'm surprised we still even have it highlighted as an invest. In fact, let's go to National Hurricane Center before we do this and see what they're thinking, because I know probabilities are just trending way down. Oh, yeah, look at that. We're back into yellow again. That's how little confidence everybody has that anything's going to happen with that system. So, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Well, we definitely didn't get through the list. There were a lot of folks who were very confident we were going to get through the 2023 list. And you know what? One thing's for certain. National Hurricane Center, Colorado State, and who else was it? I think there was one other entity, I forget, forecasted around like 21 storms. And I think we were just about right on the money. So I call that a win. I call that a decent season, we'll say. But all right, while we have a few more folks tuning in, let's go ahead and talk long range. So this was 0Z. This is what I used in my video earlier today. You look at 0Z, very little to no agreement. We have 51 members of the Euro ensembles, and we have maybe 5 or 6 of them thinking we're going to get a low pressure out of Invest 97. And then you go through time all the way through, and you look at that, there's nothing out there. Nothing. Literally nothing. Have some possible strong low-pressure systems, some Colorado and Texas lows over the United States that look to try to form up, but not a whole lot of pizzazz out over the Atlantic. And then I went to 12Z just for shoots and giggles, and I scrolled through time, even less agreement. Look at that. We had maybe 3 ensemble members going for 97L. That thing is just literally a dead stick, as we call it. There's nothing going to happen with it. Maybe a little bit of increased rain. I wouldn't even go as far as some of the other channels mentioning really bad flooding. I know I mentioned flooding, but I'm almost ready to say you guys aren't going to see anything out of it besides a crisp breeze at most in Central America, unless we see some flaring up down the road. For those of you joining in, PM, Judy, welcome in. Unfortunately, it does seem like Florida's going to stay dry for a while. It's definitely, I think it's going to stay dry for a while. I don't really see anything in terms of rain on the horizon, unfortunately. Sounds like you were getting gun shy. Don't be, rather be safe and an early heads up. You know what they say about Mother Nature. Oh, yeah, no, I'm just being totally realistic with you guys. Because trust me, like I said earlier in the stream, if there was something to talk about, I'm definitely going to blast it out first before anybody else does. I've already developed the habit of doing so because I tend to look really long range. And so, just worth bringing up, just for shoots and giggles, if you look down over the Southern Caribbean, we have no ensemble agreement for 97L, but then watch as we go towards the back end. Look at how all of a sudden we have quite a bit of agreement coming out of there. I won't say quite a bit, but you could see it starting to trend up, something coming off of South America and moving to the north. Maybe 3 or 4 blue ensembles for a 980 through 999 low pressure. And then you come over here and you go to the tropical depression probabilities, and you can see that we still have some high agreement, at least in the next 72 hours, that maybe we'll get something at a 97 or up to an 85% chance, which in all seriousness, that is higher than it has been. But then you go through time, gone, and then watch this. At the end of the loop, there you go, coming up, coming up, coming up, and then coming up. And then look at that. We're already back up to something coming off of the Columbia coastline on the 12th of November, all the way up to a 30% shot. And not much, but I mean, like I said, if there's anything we want to talk about, I guess the Southern Caribbean is still ripe for something, technically. Whether or not this happens, that's a huge maybe. We just saw we had great probabilities and possibilities with 97, and that thing died out quick. So, Hurl, I did see your comment. I really don't think that's going to happen, man. I honestly don't think that we're going to see anything blossom from 97. It would honestly need to consolidate within the next 24 hours. Like if we wake up tomorrow morning and we see that there's suddenly a huge burst of thunderstorm activity and we're really consolidating that low spin, then maybe we can make a case for it. But as of right now, I really don't think we're going to get anything. Maybe a tropical depression if it does decide to suddenly strengthen. Nothing rapid intensification fashion, though, in all of our models. Every single one of them, even the UK, the KMA, all of them think we're not really going to see much out of it. In fact, we'll go look at the icon real quick because I know we have 18Z there. Yeah, even the icon has lost all faith in it. There's a low pressure that's still out there, but nothing really organized, plows right into Nicaragua and then keeps going into the Eastern Pacific. And even then, it really doesn't try to mix up too well because we have all that dry air coming through the Tehuantepec Channel. And then from there, nothing else really out there. Look at 12 Zulu. I didn't really get a chance to look at 12Z. Yeah, no, so nothing out there on that. Let's go to Euro 12Z. That's just how little faith I have that we're going to get anything tropical for the rest of this hurricane season. Even the Euro doesn't really have anything. We get some very, very strong prevailing easterlies through the Caribbean, rushing through the Lesser Antilles all the way through. Maybe that's what the model is thinking, could try to generate a surface-induced low pressure down there and then try to spin it to the north. But now that you mentioned it, PM, El Nino, it's not over. El Nino is not over. It's still in effect. Let's go ahead and switch gears now and kind of start talking about that. And we can start hypothesizing a year out. Because this is the one thing I'm a little concerned about. So let's go, where was the website that I looked at earlier? Let's see, where is it? I don't think that's it. Is this it? No, this isn't it. That's not it. See if I can find it. Is this it? Aha, here we go. All right, we'll pull that up. And then we'll come over to Tropical Tidbits, and we'll actually go really, really long range, and we'll start looking at some of our Climo models. So we're actually getting new ones in, too, because it's the first of the month. So we're doing this at a good time. You can see it's loading in. We just don't have August. So sea surface temps. As we know, we still have a lot of hot water out there in the Caribbean. So that's one, I said it earlier in my video, maybe that's why my views are down, because people think I was wanting a big storm. That's not what I want. It's, more so we needed a big storm to go through the Caribbean to mix all that hot water out of there. So you look at the SST charts and you can see that you going into next hurricane season, we're going to have really, really warm waters in the Caribbean. Really warm waters in the Caribbean. We don't have August yet, but you can kind of put two and two together and just see that the Caribbean is going to be hot. This is valid for May through July of next year. Super hot waters. And you go to the analysis data right now, and unfortunately, you look at the sea surface temps or the sea surface anomalies right here, there's still a large area of upwards of over 2 degrees Celsius above average. We're starting to finally see temperatures cooling off where they should, but unfortunately the Caribbean just is not it's not cutting it. It's not cutting it. And then you come over here to the actual sea surface temps, and there you have it. That hot water is really not going to go anywhere. And I don't anticipate we're going to get frontal systems coming all the way across the Caribbean down into the tropics to help try to cool things off like we're seeing in the Gulf and especially up over the mid-latitudes. And the reason I raise that concern and the reason I definitely don't want to take our, to just completely forget the tropics and not analyze what's happening is because you look at this one in particular. I'll zoom my screen in a little bit so you can see it clearly. This here is going to be your projections as we go over the next several months and into next year. So according to what the most recent data is, I need to find where the MEI chart is so we can look at the fine statistics, and I really think that El Nino is still down there and it's in full effect. You look at the temps over in the East Pacific and it's there. It's just because we have such hot water on the opposite side, we're not seeing the impact. So it's kind of like two different environments. On one side of the planet, it's totally textbook El Nino. On the other side of the planet, things are so dorked up that El Nino is not fully registering. But as you go through most of the winter time up until March, you can see where you're expecting a strong El Nino. And then what has me very, very nervous about next hurricane season, which is why I'm already talking about it, is if you look at these blue lines trending up as we enter the hurricane season, and you kind of extrapolate out, you can imagine that as we go through time, those lines are probably going to go up a little bit more and a little bit more as we go through July and August and September. And if you look at what we had this hurricane season, 2023 hurricane tracks. If you look at our map here of what happened this year, even though it was fairly active, you can tell that most of our hurricanes stayed out over the Atlantic and stayed away from everybody, except for Idalia and Harold, who had an opportunity to get going because we had just squashed a lot of our El Nino qualities out there in the Caribbean and in the Gulf of Mexico. So I saw someone mention, who was it? Let me see. Worst hurricane season I predicted. Sarin doesn't affect it during. It is a factor, but you got to remember, during a La Nina, we're going to have a lot of dust possibly out in through this area, the main development region. What I'm focusing on is the fact that we're going to have a very, very warm welcome, literally, in the Caribbean for stuff to fire off. And I'll say it again, and I know some people will debate this with me, but we had a good year. This year was not bad. All things considered. I mean, you look at the charts here, and it tells you everything. We had Brett go through, we had Franklin go through, and then we had Tammy and Philippe skirt the Lesser Antilles, and especially with Tammy, a lot of the Antilles got very lucky. They saw very minimal impacts outside of the backside moisture, not even really associated with Hurricane Tammy. Bermuda dodged a couple bullets. We had Lee and Nigel go through that general area. Tammy decided to try to come close. Didn't quite cut it, so Bermuda dodged some bullets. And then naturally, the United States definitely dodged a lot of bullets outside of Idalia. Idalia was like the big one for this year. And even with Idalia, if we want to really look at the big picture, we got lucky to an extent, especially with how she was rapidly intensifying and then decided to go through an eye wall replacement cycle at the last second and come down a little bit. We definitely dodged a bullet on that one. Had she continued to stay the course and keep that eye wall and eye structure perfectly, then that would have been really bad. But, my big thing is, and I'm hypothesizing this, if we come back to our oscillation forecast and we start to see La Nina trend up and, we start to get rid of El Nino, especially as that forecast goes down. And I mean, even just looking at the neutral phase, look at how much the neutral phase starts to trend up by the time we get to April, May, and June. Even that alone is going to change the name of the game out there. And then you come back over to here and you look at what we're forecasting for sea surface temps. I know we'd mentioned that Saharan dust is going to be an issue, but that's not where a lot of our hot water is going to be. It's going to be down there in the Caribbean because we haven't had anything cycle through all that deep ocean heat content. And, it just unfortunately doesn't go anywhere. You might be able to mix a little bit of it out when we transition to a bit more of a La Nina pattern, but a lot of it is not going to have anywhere to go. So, I mean, even if we're talking, a degree, half a degree hotter Celsius. That's still 3 to 4 degrees hotter Fahrenheit down there than we typically see in a La Nina year. So I'm a little on the concern side that because of what happened this year, we've already been lulled into a false sense of security, and we're going to start seeing a lot of these tracks be more here, 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 and so on and so forth. And that's bad. That's the main reason we got so lucky this year. It was technically an active season. It was definitely way above active or above average for what we were thinking. And with the preliminary forecasts we're talking about, Punky the Mixed Dog, I see you tuning out. Have a good night. Take care. I hope all is well for you. But anyways, guys, that's the main reason we got lucky. We had a lot of strong storms out there. We had a lot of storms come back from the dead. We had a lot of zombie storms out there too, which was very interesting. And, you know, you look at the tracks, and let's say we do a copy and paste of this and the MDR, because the MDR was ripe. We had a lot of shear a lot of the time over the Caribbean, and even right now when we could have seen the likes of Invest 97L, 96L for that matter, the previously highlighted entity down there at Caribbean, if it weren't for what El Nino and what the big picture pattern was doing over the United States, you know, we definitely would have seen some development and got close to seeing something big. But if you go ahead and flip the script, let's say, for instance, like someone had mentioned, we have a lot of dust out there in the Atlantic, so we can't quite tap into our MDR source region, but the Caribbean is fully open for business. You take a lot of these tracks and you translate them over, and you look at exactly what a lot of the... And what I'm trying to do is kind of just copy and paste what these hurricane tracks are doing, guys. With what a lot of the different things... I mean, look at that. Look at the difference. All I'm saying is if we switch out from an El Nino and go La Nina, and with that little bit of an elevated risk in... Yeah, you know... Could 2024 be a repeat of 2022? Technically speaking, it can. It definitely can, Nomad Cat. So is that meaning more storms or higher intensity storms for next year? Not necessarily higher intensity. I hope not higher intensity. I hope. I mean, especially with... Because when you guys think about it, we had a lot of good ocean heat content across the Atlantic, but a lot of the really intense ocean heat content was in the Caribbean. And we really didn't have all of our parameters line up to get something big going out there. So technically, Thomas... we can't rule out that we might not have one or two stronger storms out there. So, and that's the problem. You look at where the tracks went for the majority of this year, and if you change the source region, that's it. If you change the source region, instead of them forming here and doing that, if you move it out and you have them forming here and doing that, look at how much that changes the game. And even with just those 4 lines, let's say we get a quiet, hurricane season and you have 4 major storms. Look at the difference just right there. Let's say, hypothetically, the Atlantic is dead quiet. We have too much Saharan dust out there, so the main development region can't support a single tropical wave. If we have very favorable conditions in the Caribbean and those tropical waves suffer in silence across the main development region to move into the Caribbean, even if we get, even with my 4 little hypothetical lines right here, even if we get 4 storms that do exactly what a lot of these storms did this year, just further west, that changes the game entirely. Changes the game entirely. Because this would put every single one of our more major systems we saw in the Atlantic that everyone was saying, fish storm, that'd put it right into a majorly populated or a highly populated area. And with the trends going towards La Nina and our ocean heat content lightly not going away, I think it's safe to say a lot of us weather enthusiasts or weather analysts, meteorologists, whatever you want to put on the table in the weather department, we should really start to do very, very preliminary forecasts for next year. And I know that that's jumping the gun. It's really jumping the gun. Like I said in my video earlier today, that's like doing almost a year out worth of forecasting. But we had 2023, as far as I can say, honestly, has been one of the more erroneous years, one of the more anomalous years. And if you take the dynamics we had in play with this hurricane season that supported a lot of fish storms, as people like to call them, and you couple that with a very favorable Atlantic period, that opens up the gateway for us to see some very, very devastating storms hitting a lot more people because of where they're forming. And that's the thing, too. We had good conditions out over the Atlantic. Clearly, looking at this chart, you have a lot of out there that tried to make it closer to land, but they just never quite cut it. So, we saw some pretty big storms. And if you switch it up, if you flip the script and turn it upside down and you move what we had going on to keep the Caribbean closed most of the season out over the Atlantic and you allow it to form closer to home, even if we get tropical storms or low-end hurricanes, let's say, for instance, things are not going to blow up as bad as we're thinking right now, even if you change the source regions and have more stuff forming in the Gulf of Mexico and more in the Caribbean, that's still bad. You have so many more people out in front of it than if you have things forming in the Atlantic. In the Atlantic, you have a much, much lesser chance of getting hit by a hurricane because, as you see on this chart, you have a lot more leeway for those things to swing up and away. If you have something formed down here, even if it's weak sauce, even if it's just a little tropical depression or a tropical storm, there's so much more in front of it for it to bounce off of that almost no one is safe at that point. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. We have such a hot Caribbean. La Nina looks like it's trying to come back into play as we get into next hurricane season. So we might have things forming up in different spots. We might have things forming up in worse positions. Even if they don't go full Hurricane Lee, Hurricane Otis, etc., they're still forming up in an area that's far more susceptible to having somebody sitting out in front of it when it decides to push out. So that's all I'm saying. We'll definitely have to wait and see. We have a long time now before we get even close to hurricane season. We have to see exactly what our El Nino and La Nina does as we go through the heart of winter, and we have to see if maybe we do get one more thing out there that might churn those waters up and try to put us back to normal. Because I know that Weatherman Plus was also looking at it, and I've noticed it as well, taking a quick glance at the upper level vorticity for a little while. And you go to the potential vorticity charts, and even right here, if you look, when is this? This is 2023. What day is this valid for? This hasn't even updated. This hasn't updated. Why has it not updated? That's still 30 October. Maybe this revises at certain periods. But anyways, what I'm getting at here is if you look at the control member of what our upper level environment looks like, as we go through middle November, it looks like we get another surge of favorable conditions for something out there in the tropics. And this is why some people are thinking that hurricane season could go further beyond November 30th, because as you get past that December 1st threshold, look at how even the East Pac in the upper levels is still favorable for some kind of tropical formation. Doesn't mean we're going to have a whole favorable setup down and close to the surface, but it's just worth mentioning that even though the GFS is being silly and we see that random storm forming out there, it's not entirely 150,000% off the table. Yeah, you can definitely see that. We still have our subtropical jet in full effect down there. Caribbean is still ripe. I mean, you look at it, and there's still a lot of good winds out over that area. Even going down further into the future, still a good anti-cyclone out there. But, I hope that makes sense. We just got to keep an eye out for what's going on out there. Actually, you know what? We do have an El Nino chart right here. And it looks like we're kind of getting into more of an El Nino, it looks like, according to this. We've been in kind of like a moderate El Nino, and now all of a sudden it's spiking up. I didn't even realize that. We have our El Nino numbers right here. So, yeah, you can see that this is verifying really well with what we're forecasting here. Very high levels of El Nino working through the winter time and then tapering off. So this is also something that I'm going to keep an eye on as we go forward in time. I want to see what this does, because this is also going to be key. If we drift closer to this neutral or, God forbid, down into La Nina, then we're going to have a problem as we go into next hurricane season. This Friday is the 10th anniversary of Typhoon Haiyan. I'd be surprised if a storm forms in the Caribbean due to moderate to strong wind shear. Yeah, like the wind shear down there really isn't all that bad, though. That's the thing. That's what's been throwing all of us for a curve with the system down there in the Caribbean right now. I mean, you look, and that area of wind shear is trying to chase after it, but there's still also some favorable setup down there for this thing to get going. Although this is new, it looks like some of the shear broke away and is kind of forming up right around the Central America area. So, yeah, there's good shear where it is right now, but down the road, there's really no opportunity for this thing to get going. SOI is going up, meaning El Nino is slowing. Where are you getting the SOI? I would definitely like to look at that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, just looking at charts, El Nino looks like it's still in full effect out there because we have all that hot water right to the south of Mexico, Central America, off the South American coastline. And when it's not El Nino, this migrates. It migrates. So, I mean, just looking at this by itself, I can still see El Nino working its magic down there. It's just we have such a hot Caribbean and a semi-warm Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf is still about a degree warmer than what it should be looking at this, especially in the Bay of Campeche and the western side of it. We're still sitting right around in these values. So about half a degree to a degree warmer out there, Charlie, in the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, Thomas, definitely hang tight out there because I know you guys are getting buffeted by some really, really, really bad weather out there. You guys are having like your own large-scale bomb cyclone hitting you. Go to BOM Australia and click on climate and then Southern Oscillation Index. Let's see, BOM Australia, Bureau of Meteorology. Australia's official weather forecasts. You'll be shortly redirected to this, blah, blah, blah. And then go to climate. Where is climate? Climate and past weather. Is that it? I'm assuming that's it. Climate and past weather. And then we'll go to Southern Oscillation. This is climate. And then where is Southern Oscillation? Even right here, their ENSO outlook says El Nino. So yeah, their model probability is we're going to slowly wander out of El Nino. The average of everybody is thinking we're going to go almost into a neutral phase as early as March. So that's interesting. I like how they full-fledged mention global warming right there. They are full sold on global warming. I'm going to favorite this website, though, so I have it. BOM Australia. There we go. Now I have it saved. So, I mean, even just looking at this randomly, we're still looking at possibly going out of El Nino as we get into next hurricane season. So, technically, Milagros, I can't say that I'm a meteorologist because I don't have my degree yet. In progress, I'm about a year to a year and a half away from getting my degree, but I do have now 11 years, we'll say, of actual weather experience, professional weather experience, not just YouTube weather or fandom weather looking at websites. Like I was a forecaster and a weather analyst for the military. So I do have actual professional experience. Climate, I just go up and click on Pacific Ocean. Where is Pacific Ocean? Where is Pacific Ocean? I can't find it. Oh, Pacific Long Range Forecast. Is that what it is? And yes, thank you, Zenful. Yeah, so I'm in the process. I should have gotten my degree sooner so that way I could come out and just jump on television. That's the end goal. I really want to get on TV. That's truly what I'm working on getting right now is the degree, so I can even be considered an applicant for some of these places I've already applied at. And that's the number one reason why I enjoy doing these videos so much, is because it's just more experience for me. More experience for me. But hopefully very soon, while we're still active on YouTube over the next year or two, I can finally come on and say, yes, I'm meteorologist at Weather Center Nazario, as opposed to just Weather Center. But yeah, I mean, honestly, guys, we could honestly call this Tropics Talk early, because there's really not a whole lot to talk about, and I really anticipate that this is maybe what the rest of the hurricane season is going to look like. There's some folks who are still rooting for something to form up out there, but if there is something, I can't find it right now, that's for sure. I mean, for certain that the hurricane season is quieting down when even the GFS doesn't have anything on its long-range ensembles. You look at the GFS ensembles, and there's nothing. Nothing. I mean, maybe some random lines that pop up. Those are all for Invest 97. Very weak. GFS has lost confidence in it. Nothing coming out of there. And then, I mean, there's like one or two members that come out of the same spot, just like the Euro was indicating down in here, but, not a whole lot. We thank you for your service. Oh, well, thank you very much, Brian and Carmen. Thank you guys for your support. Do you think you'll be at the Orlando Car Show on Saturday? You know what? While we're here, I'm actually going to look that up. Do you happen to remember the name of it? Because I actually was reached out to by one of my car club teammates and mentioned that I do need to start getting out to shows more often, because I really haven't done anything in the car scene around here. Orlando Car Show. What would that be? Today's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, right? Yeah. November 4th. Which one would it be? Because I see Central Florida International Auto Show at the Orange County Convention Center. I also see Conway Gardens Car Show and Fall Festival on Saturday. I'm assuming it's the International Auto Show. Oh, yeah, it's at the Convention Center, so it's the auto show. Maybe. I mean, we'll see. We'll definitely see. I wouldn't mind. I just don't think I'll be able to bring the actual car out to that. I don't even know how to begin to register for it. I can look at the website afterward. So, yeah, after this live stream, if you want to hit me up on Instagram, I can kind of look and see what the tickets are like and maybe get out there. I know we're looking for something to do. I can still drive the car out there. In the UK, Carmen. He's out in the UK. You the man, Nazario. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you. By the way, if you're... Oh, wait, no, you're not around here anymore. Shucks, I was going to say, because since I'm thinking of getting together with Clean Culture and starting to go to shows more often, I was going to say you got to come out. But dang, never mind. Missed opportunity. You should go to Cars and Coffees in Lake Nona, usually on Saturdays. Lake Nona, okay. I mean, I wouldn't mind a Cars and Coffee, get the feet wet back in the car scene and see what we can start doing. I used to love going to Cars and Coffee out in Phoenix, Arizona. They had a wonderful Cars and Coffee. I mean, you go up to the Scottsdale area, the rich part of Phoenix, and, it goes without saying. Time to start tracking the blizzards. I agree, Robert. Once they start naming the winter storms, we can start making winter storm videos as well. Dark Earth, I saw your comment. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Pac Northwest. I talked about that a little bit in the video. We have another frontal system getting ready to come ashore. We can actually go to the NAM this time. We can go to the NAM and kind of take a look at that real quick over Conus. We'll do the rain-snow mix. And you can see as we go through, even as early as tomorrow, we're already going to have that onshore flow, higher terrain snowfall. Would not be surprised, depending on how strong of a warm sector we have, if we have some mixed precipitation in there. And then the NAM really doesn't have a whole lot happening with. The NAM thing is going to dissipate before it can get out of the Rockies. So very interesting. I know the GFS was calling for something stronger than that. Of course, GFS had it translate. Oh, no, actually the GFS has it dying out too. Excuse me. Sorry about that, GFS. And then shortly after that, as we go through the weekend, we have our next frontal system going up through there and coming across, looking kind of Alberta Clipper-ish, so to speak. Moving through the Great Lakes, screaming through. Yeah, that's definitely looking like a Clipper flying across the northern tier states, bringing some good lake effect and some good old snowfall to the northeast. So, I mean, we're definitely getting into the full heart of fall, moving towards winter now, because we're just having front after front after front after front coming on the West Coast. Maybe someday. I mean, I'm still going to be here, that's for sure. Will, what kind of car do I have? It's a 2015 Evo 10, the last of its kind. I bought her brand new with 7 miles on the odometer. It was out in Phoenix, Arizona in 2015, January, and I remember I called the dealership. This was right as Mitsubishi had discontinued those cars, and I called the dealership, and I was asking, hey, why do you have that Mercury Gray Evo 10 on sale for so little? Why is it red tagged? It's brand new. And they said, oh, well, because we're we had a truck of 3 come in, and 2 of them sold, and we're not getting another one. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're not going to get another one for a while? And the guy goes, no, we're not getting them ever again. Mitsubishi, they're obsolete. Mitsubishi doesn't make them anymore, so this is the last one we're ever going to get. And I literally said, I'll be right there. Hung up and then went and grabbed her same day. I raced up there, too. I was like, I'm not missing out on this opportunity to get a brand spanking new. You're very welcome, Carmen. Zonal, not lateral. Yeah, no, that's zonal flow up there, moving west to east like that. Blizzards, not my cup of tea. Well, down here in Florida, we never got to worry about that. Very windy down here in Florida. Yep, Milagros, that's that post-frontal winds that we have going on out here. That's the cold air advection coming through. And Nazar, the car show is free to attend. Just park, walk in, and enjoy the cars. You can also tell, oh, okay, well, then you know what? Maybe that's what we'll end up doing. Evo's on my list of dream cars. I want a 7, 8. Oh, I agree. Yep. Definitely agree. I have a 10, and I love it to death. Definitely love it to death. I'm never going to part ways with that car, even if it blows up. Knock on wood. I don't want it to. But yeah, the Evo lineup, the creme de la creme was definitely the 7 and the 8. The 9 was good, but a lot of people, they think Evo is like synonymous with what you saw in Too Fast, Too Furious, and the 8. I had a 1964 Mercury Monterey, had a breezeway rear window, slid down into the backseat, turned more heads than a Corvette. Heck yeah, I like that a lot. That sounds awesome. Nazario, where are you from? Because your name sounds Hispanic. That it is. It actually is. So on my dad's side of the family, we have a lot of Hispanic relatives and Puerto Rican relatives. That's kind of why I have a soft spot for Puerto Rico, and why, if you guys remember, back when Tammy was starting to come to fruition, I almost did truthfully get a little emotional when I saw that there was a potential Cat 4, Cat 5 headed for that area, and I immediately blasted it out. Because the last time we saw that happen, it was with Lee, and Lee did go Cat 5 for a little bit, and so I saw that and going straight for Puerto Rico, and I almost flipped because I knew no one was going to talk about it until it was already coming, so that's why I blasted it out. But yeah, I have a lot of Puerto Rican on my side, or my dad's side of the family, relatives I haven't met down there on the island. I keep in touch with my aunt who lives down there, who's actually helped with collaborating in terms of, hey, are we really seeing the whole life-threatening flooding that everyone's talking about, or what's really going on down there? And she'll be like, no, it's fine. I mean, we're getting a lot of rain, but it's nothing really that bad. So I find it funny that a lot of people on YouTube and everything who don't actually live down there were hyping up the situation, and my aunt's just like, we're used to this. Just adds to the traffic a little bit. I love the Evo 8s. Same dream car would be R34. You know, I'm going to go against the grain, Mike, and say I would love an R33. The R33 is like the forgotten stepchild of the GTR lineup, I think. You don't see too many of the R33s, and if you do it right, they can look so clean. But I do like a good R34, and especially a R35, a GTR. I would not mind one of those at all. Nazario is Latin. It means Nazareth in Hebrew. Yep, correct. If you want to see an overpriced car, look up the Mercedes EQ450. All you needed to say was Mercedes. That's all you had to say, Ethan, but I agree. Same here, Naz. I keep in touch with my mom and grandma down there. Very good, Nomad Cat for you, so you know where I'm coming from. When I saw stuff like that popping off, it's like, you know what, I'm not pulling any punches. We're going in on talking about this. Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico as a high-end Cat 4 during 2017. Yep. Yes, it did. Devil Charger 99 Eclipse. Ooh. So I have an 07 Eclipse, the V6 model, and I low-key went to a Mitsubishi dealership when we got our Eclipse Cross, and I almost right out of the gate, I saw someone had a 97 GST that they were going to sell for real cheap, and I was ready to be like, do you want to just trade right now? Because I'll take it. You can have my 4th gen. I'll take the 2nd generation real quick. Oh, a Hebrew Latino. Okay. I was raised in Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras. Okay, I'm familiar. I have most of my family down in Caguas and Aguadilla down there. And I think there's one other area. I'm not sure what the name escapes me, but those are the 2 big towns that a lot of my family reside in currently. Oh, yeah. I love my 4th gen. The 4th gen is definitely fun. I have a little cold air intake that almost got me into trouble a few times when I was going to say street racing, when I was storm chasing. Because you know how you can very easily waterlock the engine if you get some sucked into your intake. So there were a few times where I was like, I got to be careful doing my storm chasing right now. You get any water in there and you're going to hydro lock the motor instantly. And I didn't need that to happen. That's why I said list, but number 1 on the list is a Saline S7. Ooh, a Saline. That's a heck of a car. But all right, folks, if we have any more weather questions in the chat, please shoot them in now. I don't want to derail this live video. We already have less viewers in here as it is, and I don't want people who are going to tune in later to be like, 90% of this video was him talking about cars and, reminiscing in Puerto Rico. What is going on here? So I'm not trying to cut the stream, but at the same time, if there's not a whole lot of weather information to go over, guys, it is what it is. We can reevaluate and see what the rest of or I should say now, the last 29 days of hurricane season has in store for us as we go forward. But as it's looking right now, we don't really have a whole lot on the agenda. So Tropics Talk is going to be wrapping up here very soon, and then we'll have to see what comes next in the weather sphere across North America, and if there is any last glimmer of hope for maybe getting a tropical system out there. It looks like we're going to still have lots of moisture, but in terms of an actual tropical system, I leave a giant question mark because I don't know if we're really going to get it. Robert, have a good night. Good night to you as well. I witnessed blizzards in Buffalo. Oh, yeah. Definitely very, very blizzard prone in the Buffalo area. Anywhere into the north. And honestly, you're still susceptible to a blizzard, even sometimes in the central and sometimes the south. I remember I was in a blizzard one time in Flagstaff, Arizona. So it goes to show that even though in Arizona, being that far to the south, you still get some pretty intense stuff in terms of wintry weather. And I don't know, Dark Earth, that's a good question. What are the names? What winter storm names 2023? Here are the winter storm names. So imagine we see all the same names from hurricane season. What the? All right, so we have Archer, Bryson, Kate, Donovan, Ember, Finn, Jerry, Heather, Indigo, Jarvis. Oh, Jarvis, it's Friday the 13th. Caden, Lorraine, Miguel, Nor, Orzel, Preston, Kadir, Ronnie, Sawyer, Tormund, Unitas, Victoria, Winton, Xenops, Yoshino, and Zyler. So there you have it. There's our winter names for 2023 going into 2024. And let's go ahead and see, just for shoots and giggles before we wrap up, let's go for 2024 names. Let's see what we got for the 2024 hurricane season. That's this year, and then next year we have Alberto, Beryl, Chris, Debbie, Ernesto. I've seen Ernesto before. Francine, Gordon, Helene, Isaac we got to watch for here in Florida. Joyce, Kirk, Leslie, Milton, Nadine, Oscar, Patty, Raphael, Sarah, Tony, Valerie, and William. Let's see if how far down this list do you think we're going to go, guys? Because technically speaking, according to this hurricane season, we're right there, minus our random one-off storm we had in January. So we got through most of the list, and we had a number of invests that just didn't make the cut. So, Milagros, good night. Have a good evening. We'll see you hopefully on Friday night for our next iteration of the Tropics Talk. So right now, just for fun, we're doing some like Las Vegas gambling. I'm thinking we really got to pay attention to in the future. We're going full like gambling right now. We're just playing. We're at the craps table right now. I'm thinking Debbie we got to watch for. I'm thinking Gordon we got to watch for. Isaac definitely, just because of that eye curse. It's been very consistent. I feel like Leslie is going to be one. Major Hurricane Leslie. And then I know it's going to sound silly, but I almost feel, oh, whoops, I messed it up. I think it sounds a little silly, but I also think we got to watch out for Raphael. Actually, no, I take that back. Raphael sounds like he's going to be another one of those Margot storms where it forms up, kind of does its own thing, and then disappears. Tony, no. I think those are my 4. I think those are the big ones. And you know what? I'll put a little star next to Chris because 2024 will officially be the 20-year anniversary since Florida got smacked upside the head by our 2004 storm, Charlie. So I'll go ahead and put Chris on my... Whoops, I definitely looked stupid just now. There we go. So I'm going to put Chris on the list just in case because of, we're coming up on our anniversary, the 20-year anniversary of Major Hurricane Charlie. My favorite hurricane of all time still, so maybe Chris will be a Dang. Come to think of it, that means 2004 was definitely very, very slow to the races if we just barely got the sea storm into August. But anyways, I'll go ahead and put Chris on the radar as well because that'll be our, quote, replacement for Charlie in 2024. So that's my little preliminary for the fun kind of gamble. Definitely 110% hypothetical. This is not anything with real accuracy. Chris, Debbie, Gordon, Isaac, and Leslie are going to be the ones that we got to monitor for, especially Chris and Isaac. Chris, because it's the 20th anniversary of our last storm, Charlie, or CH storm, and then Isaac, because that I curse for Florida has just been looming over us for a couple years now. No, Wilma was the most powerful in the Caribbean, but no, my favorite storm of all time is always going to be Hurricane Charlie. Always going to be Hurricane Charlie, because that was the one that hit Florida the worst, well, for me anyways, and definitely fully opened up the theory that I was going to get into meteorology when I grew up. It was Hurricane Charlie. Maybe one of these days if I can find old video VHS tapes of way back in the day, old videotapes that my dad took, I can show you guys 13-year-old David doing Weather Center Nazario. I didn't say Weather Center Nazario, but it was 13-year-old David out there reporting. This is David reporting from Kissimmee, Florida, as Hurricane Charlie bears down on the state. It's moving a little further to the east, guys. It's not going to Tampa. We got to watch out. I just searched that, David. Come on. And PM, yeah, I know that's not the actual replacement name. I'm just saying, like, from 2004 to 2024, we had Charlie in 2004. In 2024, 20 years later, it could be Chris. That's the reference I'm making. I'm not saying that that's actually the replacement. There he is right there. It was right about at this time where we saw the shift to the east. It was projected to slam right into Tampa, but then at the last second, right there, as a matter of fact, it started moving a little bit closer to the Fort Myers, Punta Gorda area. Wiped them out. Wiped them out big time. There he is moving through. Good old Hurricane Charlie. Tiny storm. Tiny little storm. Honestly, you look at it, and it was honestly smaller than the state of Florida, but a very wild storm. Came through big time and just caused all sorts of havoc. All sorts of havoc. Came ashore Friday the 13th. And then you could see there's that textbook frontal line right there that drove it right into Florida. Landfall right there. And I lived right there at the time. I came right over us. Wild experience. Definitely molded the path to my joining the military, going full weather, and continuing weather to this day. It was... I would say I give 40% of the responsibility to the movie Twister when I saw it at 5 years old, and then another 60% of the responsibility to Hurricane Charlie. And then every hurricane after that, because when I got hit by Hurricane Charlie, I was hooked. Instantly. I'm like, I got to do this again. The Joplin tornado. All right, we'll save that for another live stream, buddy. We got 2 minutes till we're going to start wrapping up. Kevin, I agree. Charlie will always be remembered. Right here, this is an example of how we definitely had it easy this hurricane season. We definitely had it easy. Not only in the state of Florida, but just the whole tropical AOR, because Charlie had to come out of the Caribbean first. Francis and Jean hit the Bahamas first, came in like this. Charlie came up. Ivan definitely did a lot of stuff down in the Caribbean, hit up here. Then we had Tropical Storm Bonnie hit right there. Like this right here, just 2004 is a testament that like this whole area, a lot of the U.S., a lot of the whole area that could possibly be hurt by a tropical storm or tropical system, this hurricane season, we got off light, big time. And you know, Will, that is a good question. In my opinion, a lot of people go to folklore and talk about the blessing or whatever it's called for Tampa. I just think that you guys are geographically in a position to where if a storm is headed towards you, it's either going to go down or it's going to go up because of the systems coming off the United States that catch it. You very rarely ever get a storm that'll precisely target Tampa. Usually by the time a storm's coming up from the south like this, it's either moving off to the northeast or it's moving off to the north and then eventually the northeast. Francis and Irma are most memorable for me. Irma especially, but I do remember Francis. Francis was a turtle. Francis took forever and a day. Francis was, I think, over top Florida for 48 hours. So that could have been a lot worse. Definitely could have been a lot worse. We saw a lot of damage and a huge amount of beach erosion. Let's do it. Let's go Hurricane Francis, loop, and then we'll call the stream. We'll end the stream. Beautiful storm, though. Look at that. Very nice storm. Yeah, here we go. Perfect example. So you see it rolling in Friday evening, and then it slowed way down, and it was not through the state of Florida until 2 p.m. on Monday, and I think it even slowed down after that. There goes Francis. Look at that. It was basically almost stationary off the Port St. Lucie coastline. Very huge eye. There it goes. Now it's finally moving through. Very, very slowly. Very slowly. We're still there. Still there. Still moving. Still over Florida. And even at the end of the loop, it's still going to be over Florida. Look at that. Slow moving storm. Very, very slow moving storm. Tocobaga tribe. There we go. Thank you, Carmen. That's what it is. I don't know why I said folklore. That's not the same thing. That's definitely not the same thing. But all right, folks. We will reminisce on the tropics at the end of the hurricane season. Let's see, what date does the 30th land on? Will we have a live stream that day? No, we will not. So you know what I'm going to do? On the week of November 27th, I'm making an announcement right now. I'm going to have to write this down because I will definitely forget. On the week of November 27th, before we make our huge transition here at the Weather Center, we'll do our Tropics Talks twice that week. We're going to do it on 28 November, Tuesday, and then we're going to do it on the 30th, Thursday. And the reason we're going to do it is because we're getting ready to close out the Tropics, and we won't have Tropics Talk after that. We're still going to have the live stream, but I'm trying to come up with a cunning name for the live stream because we're not going to do, obviously we can't do Tropics Talk, so it's going to be something totally different. We'll still come in here and meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but it's going to be a different platform, different title, different thumbnail, all that stuff. So don't forget, guys, let me go ahead and final Tropics Talks. I misspelt it again. Mike, have a good night, buddy. It was great talking to you. Tropics Talks, November 28th and November 30th. So we can all cheers and bon voyage the 2023 hurricane season and fully shift gears here in the Weather Center to talking a whole lot of different weather because weather's not going away. Yeah, I got to come up with a talk synonym so we can make it like Winter Wonderland. Something conversation. Like winter weather conversation or something like that. I don't know. I'm going to brainstorm for the next couple weeks. But there you have it, guys. So I'm going to make an adjustment to the routine schedule. The final week of November, we're going to do it on the 28th, and we're going to do the 30th. And yeah, I mean, when we move into when we get out of the Atlantic hurricane season, we can definitely pop in down there. We're probably still not going to call it Tropics Talk, but we can definitely talk down there in the Southern Pacific and the Indian Ocean for sure. Take a peek. Definitely not opposed to that. But all right, folks, we're going to go ahead and end the stream now. We'll see you again for Friday night Tropics Talk, and we'll see. Maybe between now and then, there might be something highlighted on the horizon. I really don't think so, but some bigger names in the weather community do believe that we could still see another name or two etched off the list, or finish the name list for that matter. So we'll see. I mean, there's a little glimmer of hope that maybe we'll have one more thing to talk about here in the Weather Center in terms of our nightly Tropics Talks. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening to come spend some time here in our conversation forum. It's always a joy. It's always a blessing, and it goes without saying, as we give thanks this holiday season, I'm very thankful for each and every one of you who have come and gone and those who are still here. So we'll talk to you very soon. Tomorrow, another full segment of Weather Center Nazario at 6 p.m., and then Friday night we'll be back to do it all over again at not only 6 p.m., but 8 p.m. for one of our countdown Tropics Talks. And maybe I'll do that too. I'll have a little countdown for how many more Tropics Talks we have. But folks, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk to you again very soon. Until next time, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.